Hi everyone, it's Chris from Sunderland Shorts Film Festival here. If you're listening to this, hello first. Um, you should also be listening to this, I suppose, if you are interested in being one of our reviewers, specifically for the 2020 upcoming Sunderland Shorts Film Festival. This email will be going out to some previous reviewers, so hello, if that's you. Um, Again, in wanting maybe a bit of a refresh on the reviewing process, as well as going out to any new reviewers. So hello to you as well. I suppose the initial plan had been to do this sort of reviewer training in person. Um, as you know, listening to this at the moment, doing stuff in person is very much not on the cards at the time being. Um, so, this is me trying to record it off my Mac at home. As some of you might know, I do filmmaking stuff as well as being this year's coordinator of the festival and having done programming and reviewing for the festival before. Um, However, I'm usually very much behind camera talent, so apologies for having to listen to me droning on too much. Hopefully, it won't be too bad for the duration of this little video. I'm just I won't be doing it kind of live through the screen as well. I've just got a bunch of screenshots just because my display for the film festival will look slightly different to yours, but I'll explain all that as we're going. Just a little kind of intro just before we do make a start. So again, I think as I explained in my email and to some of you before, so obviously for the last couple of years I've been involved in the festival doing reviews, programming last year, hosting various events and stuff too. Last year I was doing my masters at Newcastle Uni actually, and I was kind of shadowing Anne, who's kind of been the leader of the film festival up to this point, um, which was fantastic training, and couldn't kind of ask for a better insight into this kind of world, I suppose. So when Anne took the decision to retire at the end of last year, I very fortunately found myself in a position where I had a lot of the skills necessary, I suppose, and experience to be able to kind of step up to at least part of the role that she was doing with Sunderland Shorts. So I really appreciate you, kind of continuing your support with that. However, as any of you who've met Anne and been in touch with Anne will know, this is a project very close to her heart, and I'm sure she won't mind us saying we can't get rid of her that easily, but that's not a bad thing at all. Anne's really been supportive of the Film House Sunderland project we've been doing, again putting independent films on in Sunderland, coming to many of the screenings, and been really supportive in trying to get this year's festival going. And as such, she's kind of, part of the team this year, is still doing reviews, and also will be actually helping in assigning you reviewers to the different films that we need to kind of go through. So she's still very much going to be involved in this year's festival in this kind of mentor capacity. So just to kind of give you a little bit of a heads up, so the festival's kind of been open for submissions for about a month or so at this stage, at the end of March 2020 when I'm recording this. And to be honest, we're off to a great start with kind of a great number of submissions kind of already having come through. The initial interest really really kind of overwhelming in a very positive way, with not only a lot of alumni, returning filmmakers, but a lot of new people kind of coming across us too. So for any kind of filmmakers amongst you, or people who know filmmakers, any encouragement you could give them to submit at the festival would be fantastic. However, obviously with the current ongoing sort of COVID-19 crisis, and the kind of uncertainty that's hit so many events over the last couple of weeks, we've kind of taken a little bit of the pace has slowed down a little, while other people have very understandably got other concerns in mind. However, the entries are still coming in, and again, as it stands at the moment, we're kind of keeping to our trajectory for this year. So we've, as I mentioned, been open for about a month or so for submissions. We've kind of structured it slightly different this year, where we've got kind of early bird, discounts and the regular submission period, until that, eventually closes for submissions, I believe at the end of July, ready for the actual festival itself in early October. At the moment, again, with monitoring ongoing sort of situations, this is something we'll kind of adjust, I suppose, as needed. But for the moment, that's where we're at, and that's what we're kind of still sticking to. And with that in mind, I guess I'll start telling you a bit about what your role is kind of going to be as reviewers this year. So basically, every film that we get submitted to Sunderland Shorts, again, the festival, which has been going on for, this is into its 6th year now, every kind of short film that we receive, meeting our specifications. So basically, as long as it's under 20 minutes, and made within the last couple of years is kind of what we're looking for. Every one of those films is kind of viewed and reviewed by a panel of a couple of different reviewers, just to kind of give us a bit of a varied insight into people's thoughts and perceptions of the film. Now, again, we're not looking necessarily for you to go full Mark Commode on these sort of things. But in the reviews, there's a few kind of elements which, we kind of look for, and which would be kind of helpful for us, really. First of all, I suppose, we kind of want to know on the very surface of it what you think of the films, first and foremost. But some of the kind of caveats to maybe take into account on that is, short films, in regards to what they actually are. Often, a lot of times, kind of emergent filmmakers, young filmmakers, student filmmakers in some cases. So, the form of them sometimes is quite different of the regular sort of films or telly that we're used to. So, there's other considerations to take into account to some extent, apart from just the level of quality. As I start going through the different screens, which you will be accustomed to and getting used to sort of seeing for new reviewers, in a minute I'll get into more detail on that. But first things first, to start the reviewing process, this year we're exclusively using a website called Film Freeway, which when you have accepted your email sort of invite as a reviewer, you'll have a link to. So if you could, if you're following along with this, just to kind of see the different stages, if you could get onto the website filmfreeway.com, and again, specifically the one we're going to be kind of discussing, obviously, is filmfreeway.com/Sunderland Shorts. Okay, so when you're on Film Freeway, it should look a little something like this. One thing I should say, apologies for however many times I say and during this video. I've realised it's been about 700 already, so please, there's one extra for you as well. Please don't start counting those along the way. I won't be able to take the criticism there. Okay, so we're on Film Freeway now, and it should look a little something like this when you get onto the main page. You'll see kind of a variety of different websites, well, different festivals, I should say, but kind of use this as a sort of centralised hub for filmmakers to submit their work onto. you've got a kind of a few different options down the side. Again, if you're kind of wanting to specifically explore this any further, kind of seeing what other festivals are out there, but also, festivals that specialize in different areas, ones which are specifically screenwriting, for example, ones which look at just documentary, just student films. VR is an increasing form. There's kind of all the different subcategories on there, internationally, I suppose, even just on this one that I've taken from the website this morning, Portland, quite a lot of American ones on there. We've got Cork, we've got Long Beach Indie Fest, so everything from sort of big major ones, which you will see in here, to smaller sort of boutique festivals. So, quite an interesting website to kind of explore and see what else is kind of on offer, I suppose. Filmmakers amongst you will be kind of familiar with this, no doubt, into the sort of process of how this is kind of structured, in how it kind of works as a submission platform, how you upload your film either straight onto the website via YouTube, via Vimeo, to use it. But anyway, worth having a little explore around as well if you're interested. If you click along to My Festival, you should get something that looks a little bit like this. Now, again, if people are kind of on multiple festivals or reviewing for multiple festivals, it'll obviously look a little bit different. But if you do go onto filmfreeway.com/Sunderland Shorts, this is the kind of page that you will get. Again, with our logo on there, some images of previous film submissions. What do we have there? We've got Metroland, we've got Elsewhere, couple of others as well as some kind of behind the scenes photos from last year as well. Some of our guest speakers, some student submissions from one of our young and emerging nights there, kind of a big group photograph of them. On here you can also kind of read a little bit about the festival, our kind of updated for this year sort of about us section, in sort of mission statement, I suppose, for lack of a better term. You can find out the rules, some very generous reviews that we've had on there as well, which is obviously very much appreciated from alumni filmmakers. You can also kind of see those, as I mentioned, dates and deadlines down the side. Again, just is for interest as much as anything, I suppose. If you're looking to submit to the festival as a filmmaker, or kind of know anyone who might be interested, sort of the process and dates they need to think of. For us, for reviewing though, you can again there, as I mentioned, see that we're in that opening section now, in the midst of this early bird sort of period, building up to that final deadline on the 31st of July, looking to get the notifications out to everyone by August 14th, which means we kind of need to have them everything seen and kind of collated ahead of that date. So why we're kind of jumping on the reviews as early as possible, just to get the ball rolling there, but also to give something for people to do in this kind of unprecedented time, I suppose. Ready for the festival itself in October. Okay, so anyway, again, something that you may want to have an explore about and kind of see the structure of a little bit more. So if you click on the submissions tab on the top of the page, you'll get to this submissions page, something that I guess you will be very familiar with seeing over the next few weeks as you continue reviewing. At the time being, you'll have been assigned, half a dozen films or so, but basically every time you get through them, we're happy to give you more and more as you want to do them. Again, this is something where we're happy to accommodate as much as you're willing to do, and as much time as you're willing to give for them. Again, quite, from someone who's done it myself, quite a fun process, quite an insightful process to see what people are kind of coming up with. Quite enlightening from a filmmaker's point of view, I suppose, as well, to see what other people are kind of working on. and quite eye-opening, I suppose, in regards to, you know, what people are putting out there for film festivals, and gives us a bit of a sort of insight into that side of the process, which I would, you know, which is certainly very enjoyable for me. Again, returning reviewers will know this as a benefit. And newcomers as well will, you know, kind of get an interesting insight into the level of films that we're dealing with. So obviously this is my kind of homepage for it, so it's obviously showing all the current submissions again as we stand, you know, 40 odd. You can see there at the top as we record this. And again, I guess I've got a few extra tabs that you won't have here. Obviously, judging status, which once every film has been through this process, they kind of get assigned so we can figure out what's actually getting put in the program. But obviously, we need you to do your steps first. Looking down the page there, you've got the kind of main box where you'll see the information. So again, at the minute, they're all in consideration, so we'll have this green sort of tab next to them. Again, if any of the films don't, if you know, this is something which you can point out in your reviews as well, I suppose. If you think any of the films don't meet our criteria, again, we're pretty open in some regards of what we kind of allow in the films. Again, you know, we have specific student sections, specific doc sections, horror films. You know, we're not sort of age restricting on stuff like dramas. Again, you know, if it's got bad language or something like that, perhaps, you know, we kind of can program that into a place where it will be appropriate for the kind of audiences we're expecting to have for it. So in regards to content, you know, we're kind of quite open. I suppose the only things where rule-wise you might want to consider it is if it kind of exceeds the running time. So again, for the last few years, we've had a kind of 20-minute cap on this. So again, you know, last year, for example, we had a film that got submitted, and even though the runtime here said it was 20 minutes, the actual film itself was, you know, 25, 26 minutes or so, if memory serves. You know, we can be slightly lenient on this, but obviously that's probably taking the mick a little bit, you know what I mean? So, you know, that might be something you may want to point out. And again, you know, that is where we'd maybe kind of look to disqualify a film. Again, if it was, you know, broke copyright rules and stuff like that, that would be something we would consider. If it was, you know, kind of way older than within the last couple of years, it wouldn't really be eligible. Also, I suppose if a filmmaker chooses to withdraw the film for any sort of personal reasons, I suppose that would kind of change. But for the most part, and I can imagine the ones you will be assigned, they're all kind of in consideration, so not something you need to worry about there. Obviously, again, the project, it's got the title there, so you know, then the director's name underneath. Obviously, everything this year is going to be in the Sunderland Shorts Film Festival 2020 submissions sort of subcategory. It does tell you the runtime alongside that as well. So again, you know, if you're doing some of these reviews on an evening or on a lunch break or something like that, I did quite a lot of them last year whilst I was at work. You know, sometimes looking at that runtime's quite a good insight. Like, okay, I can fit a 5-minute one in right now, but this one, which is 17 minutes, okay, maybe I'll save that for tomorrow, sort of thing. So it's quite useful to have that as well. Now, the next one, it'll tell you the rating. Again, at the time of recording this, these will all be blank for you. And again, you know, for me, it will show everyone's rating that has come in so far. But again, you know, kind of don't want you to be swayed by other people, kind of want your take on these, I suppose. So, you know, don't worry too much about that. But again, from this and from that average score we get from every film being seen by at least 3 reviewers is where we kind of come up with that rating number and then kind of figure out the programming and stuff from there. So again, stuff like judging status, that'll change based on when we've got those handful of reviews in at a later date, and then we can flag up if we think it should be selected, whatever. It's also got the date actually at the end that the film was submitted as well, so you can see which ones came in early and which ones snuck in at the last minute, I suppose. Okay, so let's click on a film and then I'll tell you a little bit more about that. So I've clicked on one of the entrants here. I've actually clicked on the first film we got in. I'm sure Everest won't mind me using this as an example for you all today. He actually took part in our festival last year. If anyone saw the documentary 98, that was by him, and I'm sure he won't mind us using him as a demonstration today. His film's already had quite a good festival run, as you can see there from the image as well. So I'm sure he can take it. Okay, so once you click on one of the films which you have been assigned, it's going to look a little something like this. With the sort of play video, obviously the most prominent thing in the middle of the page there. How the filmmaker chooses you to view that video might have a few sort of variations. Now here, looking, Everest has kind of embedded this straight onto Film Freeway. So again, if you've been submitted this one, you can just kind of click it and it will play automatically from here. Some reviewers and some filmmakers, may have chosen to put their film on with a password. If that's the case, this would be obviously normally, if it's been assigned to you, we've got permission to this password obviously, and it'll be displayed below the video. Some films will be a link to a YouTube page. Again, it may have a password. Some will be a link to the Vimeo sort of player. Again, perhaps with a password. Again, these are things which are kind of on the filmmaker's discretion for where they want to host the video. But again, if it's been given to us and then assigned to you, you know, it will be able to play. If you've been assigned one which isn't able to play, you know, just get in touch with us and we can kind of check that. Having looked through most of the videos we've had in so far, I've not seen this issue on anywhere it isn't letting you play one. But again, if you do have any issues with that, or with anything with that sort of technical side of things, do drop me a message and do let me know, and I'll try to sort that for you. So again, if you play the video, you know, it very much does its thing up there. And you know, personally, that's how I like to kind of see them first. You know, not getting too much of the information, just kind of taking it as it is. But you do see underneath there, and when I continue to scroll down the page, you'll see a few other sort of bits of information, extra background that we can get kind of on the film. Again, the first time I'd recommend, you know, just kind of watching it, enjoying it, but maybe with that sort of critical review in mind on. But, you know, first and foremost, you know, kind of, did you enjoy it, and if so, why, is kind of what I would recommend, you know, taking into account. Now, for our benefit here, a few things which I'll have blurred out for you just for privacy reasons. You know, the filmmaker's email, their contact number, their address, and stuff like that. Obviously, that's for us getting in contact with them closer to the festival to, you know, get the materials off them, get the final film version so we can screen it, stuff like that. Ringing them up to see if they're coming to the festival, that sort of thing. But what we also have here, again, some of those key details, you know, when it was submitted, the run time, and again, everyone in this sort of submission category. This year, you will notice he's got a code, an alumni code sort of thing. You know, all the returning filmmakers get this extra bit of discount and stuff as well. So if we scroll down the page a little bit further, there will be something that looks a bit like this. Again, depending how much the filmmaker's chosen to kind of put on. Some, you know, right essays to go with their films practically. Some people give us, 2 words, if that, sometimes. We certainly prefer for programming and getting our marketing materials and stuff ready, the more the merrier sort of thing. So Everest is very much taken Anne's sage-like advice from last year and really provided us with some stuff we can use here, fortunately. But there you'll see a short overview of the film. Again, your discretion if you would rather read these sort of things beforehand to give you a bit of background on the film. So, here he kind of gives a little description of what happens in his documentary. You also, if a director chooses to do it, you get a short biography on them. You can get a statement from them about this specific film. Him kind of going into some of the production background there. Finding out about this bloke via a conversation with his father on Skype. You also get some things which, obviously, if we chose this film, we would be then using kind of further down the line. Stuff like a trailer, stuff like still photographs, some just looking at them there, some from the film and some behind the scenes and stuff as well. So again, extra little bits and bobs where you can kind of find out a little bit more as you go along there if you're so inclined. Underneath the title, there you'll also see kind of a few different subcategories to get a little bit more information along the way. Clicking on the credits tab here, obviously Everest is the director, executive producer, post-production, blah 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 blah. These would be as extensive or indeed as brief as the film sort of merits it here, and indeed how much we've chosen to put on Film Freeway. Specifications here, I've screenshotted it a little longer so you can see the kind of full list of them. But again, stuff that's kind of useful a bit more on a technical standpoint and kind of just interesting to some extent, to kind of what language it is in, perhaps. Some things which are useful to us, again, them kind of self-categorizing, I suppose. Obviously this very clearly a documentary, some, if I choose to be art and experimental, a filmmaker letting us know if they're a student and this is a student production sort of thing, they can kind of put in here as well. Kind of some technical things as well, shooting format, aspect ratio, that sort of thing. Extra sort of background bits of information. Also, interestingly, the completion date, which again, lets us know that it's within the last couple of years, the last, 2 or 3 years or so, which we're really looking for this in this festival, to kind of keep it current. Then we have custom form, the next one along. Sorry for clicking and stuff there. There's an assortment of rubbish on my desk between work and pens and a Lego zombie, which I'm currently messing around with. So sorry for any little clicking and stuff along the way. But anyway, custom form. One specifically that we... extra questions we kind of set up and ask for them. Again, even though some of these are covered in the specifications, some filmmakers, have kind of rushed through these in the past and not being clear. So we're just trying to ascertain a little bit of extra information this time round. So again, of the age between 18 and 25, specifically for the young and emerging sort of filmmakers category. Again, kind of asking again if they're if it's a student project, where they're from. Again, just a bit of background information too. Obviously here, not relevant for Everest. Kind of useful for us as well. If the film is selected, would you be interested in attending the festival? Obviously, this is great for us, being able to kind of promote the events. People who did attend the last 2 festivals. With every screening, we don't just show the films, but we kind of have a little Q&A segment at the end too, where we kind of interview them and kind of get a bit of insight, both filmmakers, people involved in the production, actors and stuff too, if that's relevant in the film. So, kind of interesting for us, also something we can kind of then market it on later on. So it's interesting to know that, yes, Everest would be interested in attending the festival if his film is chosen. Next one, a technical one. So we had the last year's screening at the Empire in Sunderland, as we are this year. So asking if their file is available in a DCP file format. Again, just a technical term for one which is specifically exported in settings for cinema projection. Not something that's relevant. So even though he said no here, that doesn't mean he's ineligible. It just means later down the line, I suppose I'm going to have to make some DCP files of the ones which I've chosen. So this is just trying to save me some work down the line, I suppose. And how you found out about Sunderland Shorts, obviously word of mouth for him. You know, and on top of that, I suppose he was chosen last year as well, so a bit of a mix of a few perhaps there as well. But again, just for our sort of research and planning for next year, so when we see stuff like when filmmakers have found out about us in local press magazines like Crack or Narc, something that's quite helpful for us there if they found out on Twitter or Facebook or that sort of thing. Again, a little bit of further insight you can have there. The next one be a Screen and Slash Awards tab, where the film's already been shown. I suppose. So quite an impressive selection on Everest's one for the collector already. A well-travelled film, this one, if nothing else. Again, these sort of things, all this background information and additional sort of stuff. Personally, I wouldn't let it sway my opinion on the film. It's kind of maybe interesting extra information, but I don't think it's something that you should let. The fact it's been shown at 20 film festivals already, doesn't mean you've got to like it. The reason, we want to have your opinions on this is exactly for that. We want to have your opinions on it. So while this extra stuff is kind of useful or insightful, perhaps, again, yeah, don't let it sway you one way or the other. So if then we go back and scroll down a little, that's where you'll see this tab here, I guess, the real meat of what we're looking for you from reviewers, this ratings section. Now this one for collector actually, and again, just because I'm obviously set up as the kind of admin on the page, I can see all the reviews that kind of come in for this one. So I'm reviewing the films too this year, so you've got mine on here, you've got Grant's on here as well, who's also one of our reviewers this year, who tested out the page to see it's working, as well as kind of taking part in the reviewing process. Hello if you're watching. Again, for you though, this may be kind of not shown those other reviews, again, just not to sway your opinion one way or the other, again, just to find out is your opinion's what I'm more interested in than being swayed by mine, certainly. But I thought I'd show you this just to give you an insight of what it will kind of look like, and will look like once you have wrote your own review. What you want to do is click on, after you've watched the film, click on the Edit Rating tab in the top right hand corner of this little box. That's going to be where you actually submit your review on the film. Okay, so once you've clicked on that, you'll get a sort of where you put your rating. It'll look a little something like this. Obviously, this one I've filled out with my review for Collector. A couple of things to think about here. Basically, we're not interested if you're, a technical sort of aficionado or more of just a casual film viewer here. That's not necessarily what we're going on, because at this stage, what we're using these reviews for is trying to think ahead to what our audience in a few months' time is going to think. So again, if you want to drop in some of that technical know-how, go for it. That'd be great. But equally, if that's not something you're kind of fluent in, don't let that kind of scare you off at this stage either. Again, kind of honestly, why you enjoyed it, what you liked about it is really what we're after. To make it a bit easier and to kind of give you a few sort of thinking points down the side, though, we do have a few different sort of tabs to give reviews out of 10, these little star ratings down the right hand side, which will give you kind of an average score, or you can kind of use the overall rating one. on the top left-hand corner. Personally, I use the average, but again, whichever way you prefer, go for it. That's up to you. Again, some of these are fairly self-explanatory, and again, how much you think they meet these criteria. Obviously, with 10 being the highest, none being the lowest. Originality and creativity. So again, this is kind of in regards to the concept of the short film itself. Is it, is it original? Is it derivative? Is it something you haven't seen before? Is it an interesting topic? Is it done in a unique way? All kind of things you might kind of ask yourself here. And again, originality, creativity, is it, done in a sort of interesting way? So again, some interesting flourishes in Everest's film, quite a high rating I've given it here. This is where we get into some of those technical things, and again, kind of use your discretion on these, I suppose. So direction. So again, the role of a director, kind of in charge of the creative overview of a film in many respects. So that could be regards to what you might want to consider here, the structure of the film. Obviously, there's one specifically for this later on, but how they bring all these things together: the performances, the visuals, the storytelling, the pace and flow of the film. These kind of all boil down to the directors. At some extent, obviously, how different directors approach films is a matter for a different day. I teach film and media as well, so again, this is one of those common questions. What does a director do? Well, to some extent, that may depend on the director, but kind of overall creative vision, I suppose, is what we're kind of coming onto here. Sorry. Writing. Now, this is one for where in fiction, if it's a comedy, if it's a horror film, whatever, the writing might be kind of clear to analyse. In a documentary like this one, it's up to you if you want to actually even mark these ones. I have chosen to, and kind of approach it in a slightly different way in regards to the director's clear planning for what he's done. Even though, obviously, what the gentleman in this film was saying obviously wouldn't be scripted, and follow writing in that traditional way. I suppose he's kind of following the questions that Everest has kind of asked him along the way. So I've kind of incorporated that here. If you want to miss one of these out, because you don't think it's relevant, it will still give you an average score at the end. So use your kind of discretion on this if you choose to or not. In a fictional film, obviously writing kind of a bit more self-explanatory, getting the narrative across, how well the dialogue is written, etc. Cinematography, we're talking about the visuals here, the look of the camera, interesting shot types, shot composition, moving shots, dynamic shots, relevant shots for whatever is being shown. Again, if you've got the technical know-how or not to describe these things, think, is it basically visually pleasant to look at? Maybe using a nice variety. This short documentary, I suppose, the nature of a documentary itself isn't going to be necessarily aesthetically driven. Although there are some nice sort of flourishes and stuff here, for example. So, again, how you thought the film kind of ended up looking. Performances, similar to writing in the case of a documentary, obviously for a drama, a comedy film, a horror film, whatever. Performances, how the actors did, whether believable, whether good in the role, whether well suited, a believable, convincing performance, that sort of thing. In documentary, it's obviously a little bit different. Again, if you choose to miss out this one, understandable. However, personally, I obviously kind of look at it as how much we relate to that character, even though that character is a real person, kind of being themselves. So here the guy, quite interesting, quite bubbly, quite charismatic in his kind of eccentric and unusual way. So, quite a high mark given for it. Production value, how much money has kind of been spent on the film. Again, now, similar for a documentary, This is something which, we wouldn't necessarily judge it against, really, in some regards, but it's just kind of an interesting sort of consideration. We're not saying you're going to get shown if you've got a high budget compared to a minimal budget. Quite far from it. Again, one of the things we really champion at the festival is, young emerging filmmakers, first time filmmakers, people starting out on this ladder. So, having lots of money behind you isn't necessarily something that's going to happen in that instance. But I suppose it's using what you have effectively. Using an interesting variety of locations which are available to you. That may be, having an interesting array of costumes, having visual effects and stuff. But I suppose at the end of the day, them being kind of appropriate to the story you're trying to tell. Again, personally, there's obviously the money spent on this would probably be quite minimal. Apart from Everest getting to the location and filming it, you can see from the credits that it's obviously in the specifications tab that this was kind of a next to no budget film. However, from the interesting variety of stuff he managed to get shown of the shop itself, some production value kind of came through here. You can get production value from what's around you. You don't have to kind of spend the money on it as such. Again, kind of one for your discretion to some extent, how kind of visually impressive it was. But that doesn't have to mean superheroes, swinging through the air as spaceships crash landed or anything daft like that. Pacing and structure. So this is about how the film's kind of constructed from your point of view, these two. Again, is the pace good? Is it, it doesn't become repetitive, boring, it isn't overlong, kind of thinking about film editing. Again, even if you don't know the technical side of it, do you think it's treading water? Does it take a long time to get to its point, even in 20 minutes? Excuse me, sorry, I've got the hiccups. Something that you might want to think about here, does it flow nicely? Does it kind of flow logically? Something this kind of regards and relates, to structure as well. Does it make sense the way that the film's been put together? Now that doesn't matter, obviously some films are going to have a more avant-garde sort of experimental approach to this. It's not necessarily going to be a beginning, middle and an end in that order. But does it enhance the film whichever way this has kind of been put together? Some things you might want to think about there. It doesn't matter if it's using flashbacks, it ends on a cliffhanger, whatever it may be. It's if those choices which have been made along the way kind of, suit the thing that's the story that's being told. Sound and music. Kind of self-explanatory, I suppose, in what we're talking about in sound and music. But again, it's thinking about how relevant this is to your film that you're watching. Has it been used effectively? Have it been mixed well? Is it easy to hear them? Do you struggle to hear them at certain points? So there's a bit of a technical element here as well. Is it muffled? Is it poor sound quality? Obviously, that can have quite a negative effect on watching a film if it sounds like it's difficult to hear, because again all these things are kind of gearing us towards eventually showing these things to an audience in the cinema. If you're struggling to hear something, unless that's intentional in the film, if it's meant to be in a nightclub or something like that and the music's meant to be loud, that's appropriate. But if it sounds kind of a bit dodgy and muffled and you can't really, and you're struggling to tell what's going on, that may be an issue and something that you may want to take into account with your rating here and mention, I suppose, in that comments box below. And moving on to that comments box, I suppose this is where you do exactly that, comment why you've kind of given it the ratings that you have. Again, at the end of the day, we're part of our festival. It isn't just to slate things, you know what I mean? Or indeed to go the other way and just say everything's amazing. We want kind of an honest approach to this. You know, we offer filmmakers feedback for their films as well, so we want sort of constructive criticism, or indeed sort of, you know, insightful praise, not just it was mint, or it was naff or whatever. You know, we kind of need a little bit of meat on the bones as much here as possible. And again, that doesn't mean you need technical know-how. You know, I'm not looking for you to, you know, analyze this using obscure film theory or anything like that. If you want to throw some of that in, that's perfectly acceptable. But you know, don't worry if that's not something you want to do. Again, just, you know, a brief comment. You know, if someone you know, this film was being shown, or the link to it was online or whatever, what you would, you know, tell a friend basically, you know, what you thought of it, with some level of honesty, but with some level of sort of supportive feedback as well, perhaps. So, you know, here, fun little documentary on one of life's true eccentrics. So again, you know, a little bit fun, you know, quite enjoyable, making clear that it's a documentary, also giving you a bit of insight about the character, the true eccentric. You know, I'm not looking for a rehash of the plot either as well, here, you know, because obviously that's, you know, the film should, I suppose, speak to itself. But you may want to give a little brief description of what you liked about the story, or thought about the characters, for example. Charming insight into a collector of just about anything, as he gives a tour of his findings. So again, in this film, he gives a little tour of the sort of makeshift museum that he's got in his basement, this guy. You know, kind of a bit of a hoarder sort of things. You know, quite interesting, you know, charming, both how he comes across, how, you know, the little museum comes across in the documentary, the little tour he's given. Nicely paced and compellingly constructed. So again, you know, this film only, you know, about 5 minutes in length and stuff like that. So nicely paced, you know, it kind of flows along nicely. You don't get too bored of being there or anything like that. Compellingly constructed, so, you know, put together in a way where the interview gives you that bit of insight, doesn't go too much into depth, like, you know, a 20-part series or anything like that, where you where it becomes homework to sort of watch it, you know, basically that sort of thing. Again, literally a couple of sentences all I've gone into here. If you want to write more, you can. You know, if you really are struggling to write that much as well, you know, just kind of get in what you can there. Obviously, you know, we appreciate what you are giving us here. But again, you know, some of the justifications for your decisions. And, you know, that bit of insight into why you think we should put on this film, or indeed should not put on this film. And with that in mind, I suppose underneath the comments box, we've got a little few recommendations tabs. And this is where, and your comments can reflect this as well, not just why you enjoyed this film, or why you did not enjoy this film perhaps, but also why you think, or where you think it could do quite well in the festival. So here I even mentioned a documentary. So in my head now, for programming, that's kind of put it into that little tab. Okay, this could go in the documentary section, and I would recommend it for such. You know, if the review wasn't quite as high for it, I would say, well, maybe this could go into the one section there. You know, if you feel you would pass on it if it's really doesn't meet your tastes or anything like that, or indeed if you think it's so great it's award worthy, something that you might want to mention here. If there's anything that's particularly relevant, you know, a comment you might want to make is, you know, it had this recognisable actor in, or you know, this would be interesting to a Northeast audience because this part's filmed in, you know, this location, or deals with this part of Northeast history, or whatever, depending on the film you're watching, you know, things could go in that comment section, and then your recommendation to kind of accompany that. So basically, again, once you've gone through those, filled in those little tabs, you can click on where it says update rating, and that will kind of ping that onto that page, and then for me, I will be able to then see that too. Once you click on that update rating, it'll just go back onto the main page, and you can click back on the submissions tab on the top of the page to get back to all of those films which you have been given. And from there on, it's a case of just kind of keep cracking on with it. Again, you've been given a certain amount of films so far. If you're able to work through those, that would be fantastic. Obviously, again, you just click back on the submissions tab there, like I said, and then choose the next one. And kind of, repeat the process as much as necessary. And again, as I mentioned, if you get through your allotted amount, just drop me a message, and we can, and me and Anne can kind of give you a few more to work through. Obviously, again, we really appreciate it. We want, these films to get all have a fair crack at the whip, sort of thing. So that's why we kind of want them to be viewed by a few different people each. But also to get that bit of a diverse insight. And even though things are not necessarily one person's taste, if someone else enjoys that, that's something we'll consider. Even if horror films, aren't your thing, maybe you could appreciate why somebody would enjoy that. If there's any films that you particularly don't want us view, such as a horror film like that, obviously just let us know as well. And you can keep that in mind for the review and process, and not assigning you anything that you might upset you or kind of give you any sort of issues like that. Again, that's something I suppose people certainly have mentioned in the comments section before in previous years. In art and experimental films, we've had in people saying, this may, if it had excessive lighting effects in it, this may, need to come with a warning for people with photosensitive epilepsy or something like that. If a drama was about a hard-hitting subject, perhaps that's something that we would alert people to beforehand. This is stuff we'll take into account, obviously, when programming and stuff too. But any sort of insights and your personal opinion that we could give on these issues, obviously, would be very much appreciated, and what we want you to take part in this reviewing for. So I think that's going to pretty much do it for me for now. I don't think I've missed anything out, but drop me a message if you have any questions, or if I've clearly missed something, or something isn't clear to you. Again, I hope we can do this in person before the end of that reviewing period. It'd be great to talk to you, or kind of discuss this with you further, or kind of, just kind of meet up to let people express their opinions on the festival and stuff like that. Obviously, again, we'll be kind of we'll keep you posted along the way with all that sort of good stuff. Obviously, I really appreciate you taking part in this as well, and reviewing as much as you are able to. Again, I look forward to seeing what you think of the films, and look forward to watching a few more of them myself. I guess we've all certainly got enough time to be doing so at the minute. With everything that's going on. Obviously, with everything that's going on as well, we'll continue updating you in regards to that. But, as much as possible, be safe and look after yourselves and those around you, obviously, as we all should know fine well to do by now. If you do have any questions, obviously you can reply to me via email. The info@Sunderland Shorts email that you all have and have been contacted through for this. You can also kind of get in touch on any of the social media accounts for Sunderland Shorts. Again, I'm running all of those this year, so the Facebook, the Twitter, and Instagram, whichever one is best for you, that's fine. I'm also on all of those things at Chris J. Allan, CHRISJALLAN, on Twitter and Instagram and stuff like that. So again, if you'd prefer to get in touch that way, please do so if you've got any questions. This video has probably been longer than I expected it to be, so I hope it hasn't been too painful listening through it. I hope you enjoy the reviewing process. Again, it is quite a fun one, watching films, not too bad. But get in touch if you've got any questions. I hope to see you for the festival in October. Obviously, we'll be in touch before then. But yeah, drop us a line if you need to, and hopefully I will speak to you all pretty soon. But thanks very much, and yeah, see you on the next one. Cheers, everyone. Thanks. Bye.